This
25.
conference will now be recorded.
Now I will call it to order. The January 9th, 2025 Planning Commission meeting. First, join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The chairman of the Planning Commission is en route, Mr. Wilson, and I will turn the meeting over to him when he appears. But point of order, Mr. Manhart, will you do the roll call?
Yes. Trevor Dombach.
Here.
Tim Dugan.
Here.
Todd Feringer.
Here.
Ryan Height.
Here.
Diane Kelly.
Here.
Mark Luth is absent. David Wilson is there.
Care to do the meeting rules? And
Yes, sir.
I'll turn the gavel back to Mr. Wilson.
All right, sorry about that. Thanks, Brian.
So the rules for participation and etiquette during Planning Commission meetings. For an orderly meeting wherein all attendees may be able to fully participate, we ask that you adhere to the following rules. In order that both in-person and remote attendees may hear all comments or questions, all in-person attendees will be required to use microphones at all times. We request that remote attendees please mute your microphone or telephone to avoid background noise that may cause interference in the meeting and make it difficult for others to hear. Staff may mute the microphones of remote attendees if needed. Public questions and comments will be taken at periodic intervals throughout the agenda. We will start with no time limits, but the Planning Commission Chairman may impose a time limitation if there are many questions or the meeting is running short on time. For in-person attendees, please raise your hand to be recognized, then move to the podium when directed. State your name, address, and comment or question. For remote attendees, the chat box feature will be active throughout the meeting. If you have a comment or question, please type your full name and address in the chat box. When you are recognized and so directed, please unmute your microphone and state your comment or question. Mute your microphone when done. For those who are accessing the meeting by phone only, staff will periodically ask for caller comments and unmute any callers. Callers must identify their name and address prior to making a comment. Your cooperation and adherence to these rules will ensure an orderly and respectful meeting.
All right, thank you. We're on agenda item number 3, review of the December meeting minutes. Does anyone have any comments, corrections?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed? So moved. All right, we're on agenda item number 4, subdivision review. Tillman Holdings LLC has been removed. And before we get into the 2 projects on the agenda, I just want to remind everyone, both projects are sketch plans, so they are not official land development applications. So we'll be providing input, but we won't be voting on anything and won't be providing any official motions. All right, Parkland High School expansion. Yes, Mr. Manhart, you'll start with the township staff presentation.
Yes, sir. This is an application to develop a property located at 2700 North Cedar Crest Boulevard. The plan is proposing 4 building expansions to individual sections of the existing high school, consisting of an athletic entrance, a cafeteria expansion, and 2 classroom expansions on the 112-acre site. In addition to the building expansions, the bus loop at the rear of the building will be extended A new parking lot will be constructed to the southeast of the existing parking lot with an increase in the parking spaces. And compared to the last sketch plan that was here, this one shows a stadium at the southern side of the entranceway. Again, this is a sketch plan, so we will hear comments and answer questions from there.
All right, Ms. Bett, would you like to do the engineer presentation?
Sure. As Dave has mentioned, we saw the sketch plan before back in August of last year for the building expansions and the parking areas around the facility there. This sketch plan has been revised to include a stadium. So comments from our previous memo continue to remain, such as frontage improvements and impacts due to increased traffic. We've revised our memo, obviously, from there to include the stadium comments as well. There's an additional driveway off of Ritter Road from the stadium complex. So we ask that the applicant would confirm the acceptability of the intersection of Ritter Road and Cedar Crest Boulevard. We note that spot is a little tricky, especially with sight distance. Additionally, because the stadium would appear to attract a large crowd, pedestrian accommodation should be considered to connect the stadium to the parking areas to the north. As you may know, the Jordan Creek Greenway Trail is to extend along Ritter Road, and we ask that any modifications be coordinated with the township. Since this is a sketch plan, a more detailed engineering review will be provided once preliminary final plans are submitted.
All right, thank you. Applicant, it's all yours.
Mr. Chairman, preliminarily, perhaps this will be applicable for a lot of. I'm just going to say preliminarily, and perhaps we should have mentioned this before Ms. Bett's presentation. We do have some changes to the plan as it relates to the stadium. Our votes for parking is going to address those, but it's going to take away a number of the comments this evening. It'd be appropriate to go through that change first before we go further.
Good evening, Arthur Oaks, Director of Operations for Parkland School District. Financially, the positioning of the stadium for us right now is sort of further down the road. We're looking at doing a high school addition here to address the issues with the students. We're pulling that stadium out to a further decision point, probably 2029 or beyond. So it's not anywhere in the near future. So the next couple steps of coming through here will be for other reasons, but it won't be for the stadium. So we're pulling it off of that high school facility and design as of right now.
So just to add to that, I think at the point where the school district is ready to actually move forward with that stadium, obviously we would have to come back before this planning commission with land development plans showing the stadium. So when we submit the preliminary plan application for the school building expansions and the parking lot, the stadium won't be on there, but we recognize at the time we propose it, we will come back before this board. So just a couple of questions we had regarding the engineer's comments. They did talk about the requirement for additional right-of-way dedication along the 3 roads bordering the high school property. We did some further research and looked back at the approved plans for when the high school was first built. And we believe that that right-of-way was dedicated at that time. At least that's what we saw on the plans that we were able to find. So I don't think that additional right-of-way is required, but maybe that requires some offline further conversation with the township engineer.
Yeah, we can definitely touch base offline. I don't remember offhand. It might have been deferred, but we can obviously touch base.
We've also just recently gotten a title report, which I think will also help to clarify that. But I think at this point, the right-of-way has been dedicated, and I believe we are showing that on our plans to the extent that it needs to be dedicated. The other question that other comment that we wanted to refer back to was the question about the trail easement. We are showing the trail easement on the plans, and none of our proposed improvements encroach on that easement. So the easement runs along a portion of Ritter Road and a portion of Cedar Crest Boulevard.
Is there any chance we could zoom in on that the areas that are being spoken of to.
So the trail easement, you can see what looks like a curved wall there, kind of the outside of the limit of the stadium improvements. That's pretty much coincident with the edge of the trail easement. Now, we did, as I mentioned, we did just get the title report. So we're hoping that within the title report, we'll find documentation of the actual description of the easement. We don't have that description yet. So the location of that easement may change slightly. But right there, you can see approximate location of trail easement. And none of our improvements were encroaching into that easement with us placing it as the best we could at this time. So the trail itself has not been constructed yet. There was sort of we had a copy of a rendering as to where the trail might be located. But I think that's, kind of up to the township when they choose to build that. But none of our improvements were going to encroach into that easement and limit in any way the placement of that trail.
Could I ask a question on the trail? Maybe long range planner will know. Is that a spur or is that the proposed potential main stem?
So it's proposed now to expand the section that was just constructed that ended at Lap Road as a connection to the high school. Ideally, it could be the main stem for the trail, but the intent for that was to get a safe route to the high school that can connect to Covered Bridge Park. For the applicant, the township does have a design engineer on hand now. We just completed the section to Lap Road, so we are prepared to move forward. Our next step was actually to approach Arthur and start to talk about how we can coordinate with the township, and the updated sketch plan came in at the same time. So this is a great time, even if this phase isn't moving forward, but we can connect more offline on our design engineer and how to incorporate that into this.
Certainly, because I think there was also comments in the township engineer's letter about the possible need for sidewalk along Ritter Road. And we wanted to talk to the township about if there's going to be a trail there, there's not a need for a sidewalk, and how those two improvements would work together.
Absolutely.
So Chris, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but because I'm underinformed possibly, is there land ownership between lap or deeded right of way? Because
There's trail easements. The township holds trail easements from Lap Road to Ritter Road. And then an easement as well with the school district.
All right, so I think there's a good opportunity for the engineer that's doing the trail to share files with you so everything can mesh together well and, so it's well coordinated. So I would recommend
We're in a great position. We have just, as the engineer mentioned, we have kind of the preliminary concept, but now we're working through the details and stormwater management and everything like that. So that's the other thing we'd want to consider as far down the line as you can, any stormwater impacts and how we can coordinate those to make sure we're not adding anything to the impervious calculations there.
Okay. So essentially, we had read through the rest of the letter, rest of the comments from the various township departments. I think the one other comment we wanted to mention was that some of the improvements to the wastewater treatment plant that were shown on the plan, it was mentioned that there was a conflict shown with a water line on the plans. We are going to have an underground utility locator go out to the site and make sure that we have the location of the water line shown accurately. And if we need to move the portion of the wastewater treatment plant that may possibly be over top of the water line, we will do that after we have the report back from the utility locator. And I think with that, the rest of the comments we will take under advisement as we go ahead and prepare the preliminary plan application for the building expansions and the parking lot and the bus loop. As we mentioned, the stadium will come off the plan, but those three other components will stay: the building expansions, the car parking lot, and the bus loop expansion. So you will see those in our preliminary plan application, as well as the sewer plant improvements. There were a few comments from the township's consultants about the permitting of the sewer plant improvements, and those are actually underway. So the school district does have a consultant on board that specializes in the design of wastewater treatment plants, and they're already well underway with that design and the permitting for that. So we'll do that coincident with the land development application for the township.
Does anyone have any questions, comments? I'll just reiterate, any frontage improvements, looks like there's multiple projects going on, so it's very important to coordinate all of that. Anyone in the audience have any questions? Please come to the podium, state your name.
Hi, Board. So my name is Tyler Clement. I live at 2748 Suncrest. If you wouldn't mind, could you go to the north side of the plan where yep, just right up there. So my property line is actually on that northern, yep, right there. Well, I guess a little bit over to the left. So there's several homes that are right up against where the proposed addition is being planned. So my question, and I'm not quite sure who to direct this to. I don't know if this is best for you or for the engineer. What is the plan as part of this addition to maintain the property in between where the existing bus stop is and the properties all along the neighborhood? The reason I ask is there's a significant amount of noise and light pollution, especially around pick up, drop off, all that stuff in the morning. And I'm interested just kind of hear what the board or
I can tell you that it is being considered. We don't have a plan for it yet. That's the development phase that we're in right now.
Okay.
As we've heard the concerns with the band playing back there and the neighbors and all of those things. So we're taking all of those things into advisement.
Okay.
We don't have that worked out yet, but we are working on it.
Okay. Is it through this meeting or is this something that I can work with you on specifically because of previous?
You can certainly reach out to me
Okay.
directly and you and I can sit down and go over your concerns and we can bring them to the table.
Gotcha. Yeah, I worked with the previous director of ops who had taken down some trees.
Okay.
And we never replaced them. So I'm just trying to figure out the process and path for that as just steady state and then also as part of this. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Can we pull up Google Earth and, is there any
We'll see how
buffering?
if Chris is up for it. I would just like to add, additionally, we have provisions in our zoning ordinance that talks about buffering between residential and non-residential uses. We haven't really dug into that yet because we're at a sketch plan phase, but there may be buffer requirements for that.
Okay. Yep. There you go. Right there. That's all I have. Unless you have other questions.
No, thank you.
Okay.
I'll be in touch.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so if the buffering if buffering code comes into play, and if you're required to plant additional trees, that would be during the land development phase. We would enforce that. Is there anyone else in the audience? Is there anyone online?
Yeah, so since we're at a sketch plan point, and I'll just throw the question out there, the stone building on the school district property along Cedar Crest, are there any comments or thoughts on that?
Certainly, that is something that we're considering for several things, but we're not sure exactly what to do with it. We know the historic nature of it. We know that it sits there. We still take care of it. We keep it from falling apart and being dilapidated, but we do not have a final plan yet. We're still considering options, I'll say. Knowing that it was the original construction trailer when the high school was built, when it was the old farmhouse. So we're not sure.
All right, there's no one else in the audience, no one online. Last call, anyone here? All right, thanks for taking the time to present and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, we're on agenda item 4C, Parkland Manor Phase 5 Senior Living Facility. Mr. Manhart. Could you do the township staff presentation?
Yes, this is an application to further develop the property located at 4802 Cracker Sport Road. Plan proposes construction of a new retirement facility with 40 assisted living and 40 independent living units in one 5-story building on the 2.3 acre parcel. The project will be part of the Parkland Manor facility located at this location. The property is served by public water and sewer and is zoned IC1. Aber Development 23 LP is the owner and applicant. Again, this is a sketch plan, so there's no deadlines, and department recommends the applicant utilize comments of the reviewing agencies and those of the Planning Commission to assist in the preparation of preliminary plans.
Great, thank you. Ms. Bett, would you like to do the engineer presentation?
Sure. As Dave has mentioned, this is a sketch plan. Project was actually submitted for phase 5 back in June 2023. Comments were provided, but I don't believe they were ever in front of this PC. Just a general overview, phases 1 through 3 of the plan has been constructed. Phase 4 was reviewed and approved, but it has not been constructed. So the memo that we have reviews the phase 5 proposal and does not review any of the additional plan or phases as shown on the master plan. I believe there's a phase 6 part of this project. But so we focused our review just on phase 5. It adds 2 existing parcels as part of a lot consolidation to the main campus, and additional parking is provided to the existing building to the south. We asked in our comments that we provided for frontage improvements along Crackersport Road. We note that they show curb, sidewalk, and widening, but within the phase 5 limits. And other general comments include stormwater management and traffic. There has to be further coordination of condominium agreements as part of the lot consolidation. So that'll be coordination moving forward. Again, this is a sketch plan, so a more detailed review will be provided at a later time.
All right, thank you. And the plan that's shown on the screen, it almost looks like a master plan. So in order to not confuse what the sketch is for, can we zoom into the area that the sketch plan is for? Great, thank you. All right, applicant, you can do your presentation.
Hi. What we're looking for tonight is, or we're showing tonight is the proposed, excuse me? I'm sorry.
Could everyone also please introduce yourselves before you start speaking?
I am Joel Weiner, W-I-E-N-E-R. I'm attorney for the developer. To my right and your left is William Erdman. Mr. Erdman is with Keystone and is a consultant for the project. To my left, your right is Mr. Chris Reese from T&M Associates. He is the design engineer for the project. The project is proposing to put up a building for senior apartments and senior living. It's to expand the concept of the Parkland Manor senior care facilities. Phase 4 was approved. It was never built. As phase 4 got final approvals, that was about the time that the pickleball outdoor area took hold, and that's currently the pickleball outdoor area. So at the moment, again, pickleball looks like it'll be here for a little while. So this would be the place that would get the apartments in that regard. With regard to the property, this is a coordinated development and in part is looking to tie into the rest of the Parkland Manor facilities. As you'll notice on the plan in front of you, the roadway that comes down, the roadway in this regard has one entrance up to Crackersport Road and then is coming down into the remainder of the property. Two of the questions we did have in the review comments, there is a originally the condominium area covers what had been the old, going way back in time was the old tennis courts there. The tennis club, the tennis courts.
Is that
As
on
part-
the plans? The tennis court area?
You want to go back?
And zoom out a little, maybe.
So let's see, down, that would be where Park, if you go all the way, if you go down toward Route 22 on it,
Yeah, like there used to be like a
the swimming.
fitness center.
Yeah, well, there's a fitness center as part of it. You had a series of indoor tennis courts, the big domes that were there, and then one of the domes fell in one winter, and that became where the Parkland Manor facility sits today. The other domes still exist, and those have become indoor pickleball for the most part, along with the other uses in there. Below to the, between the buildings and Route 22, there is a parcel which had been part of the original lands, but always had its own tax parcel identification. As in terms of the request to look at getting rid of lot lines and putting them in the condominium, is that something that the board that the township would like to see also brought in the same way to eliminate the lot lines internally that way?
I see you looking at me.
No, I was just looking at it. I was looking
An
over
answer
there
on
and
that
actually,
issue.
don't want to be disrespectful to everybody else. Go ahead, Jim, have fun with it.
The answer is, I'm not sure.
No, fair question. And again, it's something, in terms of the condominium, it does, because it's interrelated, there is sensible things to go do. It's something that we have to look at. Also, up the top of this property where we're coming in along Crackersport, the area that sits basically dead center on the property, that is held in one, again, it goes back to the way these parcels were acquired. That had been a little parcel that sat right on Crackersport, right where the pointer is now. And then 4802 was an adjacent property next to that. And as you'll see in the outlines, you've got some really crazy angles of the way the properties broke up, but that's long before all of us were involved in dealing with
Yeah,
this.
I think I would have to revisit what happened in the first three phases before I can give you an answer on that, because at this point, I just don't recall.
Okay.
Yeah.
And again, something we'll take a look at and discuss with you further. We have to figure out from our part also what's going to make the most sense. I mean, effectively, the condominium does gives us sort of the ability to keep them separately taxed, but puts them under a common control. And that was what the goal was here, is that each park could develop its own finance and be an independent unit, but have, by reason of the condominium, common control over everything. Keep as a coordinated development.
Had you previously provided us with a condo declaration that was
Yes.
recorded for the, okay. See, your face says that I received that already, but I don't recall.
I know this. I know we've gone through the plan. I can get you a copy of the declaration. I know we've had it, we've amended.
I'm sure I have it. I just need to
No problem.
be
We can get
required
you.
to look at it,
Yeah.
I guess is the thing.
No, and it's not exactly fun reading. Yeah, so I mean, in terms of it's basically a setup that it pretty much followed it followed where buildings broke up, that it looked at the parking lot, what had been the old tennis courts, and then took the other land around and sort of broke it into different sections. There was a comment asking about the access road to the cellular tower that's there. That lease appears to be ending in the immediate future. We're trying to figure out exactly who has it, and that's been a little bit of the prior owner had given an easement, which is coming to its end. But either way, there is a secondary route that gets to that point. And that's something I said, I think with it looking like that lease may be ending, that's something we'll be handling with them. Rid of any concern that
This is a comment I made going back to David's comment earlier. You start with the comment about the master plan. That was a request from staff, and it's actually serving two purposes. As everybody's aware, there's been a lot of things happening in this property, and I think this was an attempt to try to bring it all together on one plan sheet so everybody understood what was going on. But the other benefit is we are now in the process of getting an NPDS permit for this site. It has never had an NPDS permit, ironically. Done quite a few years ago before this was even part of the process. So we use this to make sure we have everything on the property in terms of impervious cover, to make sure it goes forward. We've had an informal meeting with the district on it. We'll say that went fairly well. There's been some follow-up work. We've been in touch with DEP, and we are moving forward with that NPDS permit for the entire site. Will something change? I can't guarantee it won't, but then we'd have to amend the permit. But at this point, the goal is to get that, and if the planning commission is not aware of it, we got a zoning approval that requires the installation of additional parking if needed. That would precipitate the permit, and everybody knows the length of time to get those permits. So we want to get that in place so that whatever has to go forward can go forward without unusual delays. So that is moving forward, and I just want to point that out. But that master plan, as I said, was a specific request from the staff, which I think was perfectly reasonable because even we had trouble sometimes trying to understand everything that's going on.
I think it's great to show it so we can get an idea of everything that's going on. Does anyone have any comments, questions?
I think just a quick question. Your proposed entrance off of Crackersport for the new phase, does that align with the business across the street? I just can't tell. I'm looking
That's
at
a good
Google.
question, Trevor.
I'm looking at Google Maps, and it looks like there could potentially be close, but
yeah, we'll have to take a look at that.
I think that's just the only comment or statement I have is
Good point.
can coordinate.
I don't think it does line up
Or maybe-
exactly across it right now. I mean, that's something we could look at. I think we lined it up what makes the most sense for the entrance coming into it.
Yeah, and I don't personally know how much traffic across the street gets. I'd imagine it's just during normal operating hours, but
Say across the street, I believe, is just a truck depot.
yeah.
I would say that would be, that it's going to be fairly, it would be very specialized going into them.
Yeah, it's probably not a ton of traffic. But
I believe that the Saldo will have separation requirements and whatnot, so.
I was thinking, yeah, we have to focus on that as we get into land development.
Yeah, so when you get into land development, probably want to take that into account.
I do believe in our past review letters from the June submission from in 2023, we asked them to wiggle the driveway a little bit just based upon knowing that the lots were not to be consolidated. But I think at this time, if we were going to move forward with the lot consolidation, we might see it be wiggled back over, just depending on how you're moving forward with your proposal.
Okay. We'll certainly take a look at that.
I think definitely the lots at the very top would be, those would definitely, regardless of what happens down below them, those two could definitely be consolidated. That would then take care of that frontage.
I would just add a comment. I mean, I know it'll be covered, but the site's pretty flat. There's a little bit of wetland. There's some natural area at the backside, but you're not really, doesn't look like you're really quite getting to. But, you know, with, as Bill said, you're getting the NPDS permit. Just be
Yeah.
cognizant of those.
Yeah, that's a good point, Tim. I actually just had a conversation this afternoon with our in-house engineer, even though Chris is doing the plan. We're looking at the environmental side of it. We just discussed at length wetlands in terms of delineation. That delineation was done some years ago. We're actually going to recommend it be delineated again, because I'll be honest with you, we're a little uncomfortable with some of the delineation. I want to make sure it's right. And hand in hand with that will be not only the wetlands, but anything else needs to be identified. It looks favorable in the sense they're not continuous, so they may not be a severe restriction, but we have to respect them.
We do know that there was a plan years ago for the land just west of that did show full, was able to develop a commercial business over there. Again, I think that was probably using the wetland study that
Any other questions? No one in the audience. Is there anyone online? Okay. Any final questions or anything you need to input on?
It's very helpful, by the way. I just want to get an idea if we're on the right track.
Yeah, thanks for giving us a heads up about the project and keeping us in the loop. Thank you. Good luck. All right, agenda item number 5, transportation infrastructure update.
I'm assuming me. The Eastern PA Freight Infrastructure Plan was adopted in December. It's basically a blueprint for the future aimed at mitigating and managing the impacts of freight traffic within the region. And then there is a regional trail gap analysis and trail roadway crossings study that is going to be evaluated by LBPC. But that's something to look forward to in the future. Dave, do you have anything? Chris?
I can give an update on some of our long-range transportation plans. So last year we worked on the first phase that included active transportation and safety analysis. We have that in a draft format that we will be getting out to our steering committee in the next couple of weeks, and then hopefully get that adopted early this spring. And then we just awarded a contract to the consulting firm of Kimley Horn to help with the second phase of the transportation plan, which looks at reclassification of local roadways by both character and functional class. Looks at freight management and really mostly in the truck routing and identifying appropriate truck routes, and then congestion management strategies for the township. So we're hoping to dig into that in the next several months here and have sort of a comprehensive transportation plan for the township that we can use to guide some of our future updates, use in comparison for land development projects and updates to our official map.
All right, great, thanks. Agenda item number 6, courtesy of the floor. There's no one in the audience. Manhart.
So just a couple things for next agenda. Tillman Holdings has done a resubmission, so they're addressing some of the zoning comments. If you reviewed your packets, you probably saw some of those comments in there. They submitted plans yesterday, so we'll be reviewing them and get them on the agenda for the next meeting. They are close. I think they'll be able to get it cleaned up for that meeting. Additionally, we received an application for Willows at Calvary Temple. That was a sketch plan in, I think it was 2022. This is the preliminary final plan. There was quite an extensive zoning letter. So we'll be meeting with them to go over that zoning letter, and we'll have a better idea if they'll actually make that agenda. But right now they're tentatively scheduled for that. We will also have a draft of the annual report for the February meeting. And we wanted to, and I think it's timely to have a discussion on some of the rules. Jennifer and and Dave, we've kind of talked about some of the addressing some of the public comment when people are speaking, in ways that we can help manage that, particularly in anticipation of Willows at Calvary coming. We are likely to have a lot of public, so we want to get ahead of managing that. I don't know if Jennifer had any.
I was just going to point out something that Dave reads at the start of every meeting, and that is, I think, limited for now solely to the time limits. There is none for Planning Commission, but in 2012, the Board of Commissioners adopted a resolution that set a 5-minute time limit for all public comment. The chairman of the board always has the discretion to allow more time for any speaker. But in discussions with Dave and Dave Wilson about it, my thinking is that if you set an initial time limit up front, it sets that standard for the whole meeting and applies it on a consistent basis to everyone rather than applying it on a subjective basis throughout the meeting. So again, you would always have the opportunity to extend time limit if you felt that it was necessary for some reason. But I think establishing that baseline 5-minute requirement right up front so that everybody's aware of it, and that they know they can't come back to the microphone 25 times for 5 minutes apiece, is something that we're trying to cut down on, and not as a restriction, but to simply run a more efficient and orderly meeting. And consistent also with the Board of Commissioner rules, which I think made sense and have always been applied in a way that's reasonable and fair to the public. And I don't think there's been an issue ever in applying those. So that's what I'm suggesting.
Yeah, I think that that's reasonable. That's fair. Just wanted to bring it to the courtesy of the floor to see if anyone had any thoughts.
I would agree. It seems very reasonable and streamlined. Makes sense.
Okay. All right, so we'll be implementing that.
So my intention then was, if depending on the direction tonight, that I would revise the rules and bring them back to the February meeting in a form that you all could review. Potentially there might be other revisions based on discussions that happen between now and then. But for now, I think the only revision that we're thinking of is the time limit requirement. So the intention will be for me to put a draft on the agenda and you all can vote to adopt those new meeting rules that would apply going forward.
All right. Sounds good.
I just have another housekeeping thing to add. I know Tillman Holdings pulled tonight, but you'll kind of see the packet kind of is different within our letters. We've been asked by the township to separate our waiver and deferral letter from our comment letter, so it's a little more consistent and clear because that's things we'll be acting on at these meetings. So that's just a difference between what you might see from years back compared to now. So just a heads up on that one.
And that waiver letter we're trying to figure out the best place to put that in the packet. I think right now we put it with the applicant section in the packet, but we'll kind of work through that. It may be bouncing around a little bit.
One thing I found very helpful is when the packets are all numbered. Like there used to be like the big red numbers. Yeah. And then
We actually just went through that. So for next meeting, I'll be doing that.
Yeah. So if we do have to go to waivers or a certain page that might have a plan that we want to look at, you could say it's on page so-and-so, and then we can all easily flip to it. All right. Is there anyone online for courtesy of the floor? All right. Anything else? Nope. Agenda item number 7.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved.